Welcome to Boring History for Sleep. This is a place where you can let go of the day, rest your thoughts, and drift slowly into the calm of the past. Make yourself comfortable, whether lying down or simply sitting in quiet, and let your breath fall into an easy rhythm. Tonight, we travel to the banks of the Nile, to ancient Egypt, a land of flowing waters, golden sands, and monuments that have stood for thousands of years. It is a place where daily life was shaped by the rhythm of the river, by the rise and fall of its floods, by the quiet labors of farmers and craftsmen, and by the grandeur of temples and tombs. Over the course of this journey, we will move gently through 4 parts. We'll begin by immersing ourselves in daily life, what it meant to wake, to work, and to sleep in an Egyptian village or town. Next, we will turn to a figure from history, following the story of a pharaoh, a scribe, or a builder whose life left its mark upon the ages. After that, we will wander into the realm of mystery and archaeology. Pyramids, tombs, forgotten texts, and the lingering questions that remain unanswered. And finally, we'll set ordinary life beside the world of the elite, comparing the humble with the powerful, the simple with the grand. But first, let us begin where life always began, in Egypt, along the quiet waters of the Nile. Daily life immersion in ancient times. Imagine yourself waking in a small house in an Egyptian village more than 3,000 years ago. The air is cool in the early morning, before the sun has fully risen over the horizon. Your home is simple, built from sun-dried mud brick, its walls pale and rough beneath your fingertips. Inside, the rooms are narrow but sufficient, a place to sleep, a place to cook, a place to store the jars of grain and oil that sustain the family. You rise from a mat woven from reeds laid across a raised platform. Your body feels the hardness of it, but it is familiar, comforting in its simplicity. The smell of the night lingers, dry dust, mingled with the faint sweetness of date palm wood smoldering in the hearth. Stepping into the courtyard, you feel the earth cool beneath your feet. Above, the sky glows pale blue, touched with gold. Birds stir among the reeds near the riverbank, their calls sharp but not unpleasant. Already, the village is waking. A neighbor leads a donkey out toward the fields. Women kneel at the grindstones, turning wheat and barley into flour with slow, steady motions. Children, still drowsy, chase each other in the open space between houses, their laughter carrying through the still air. The first task of the day is often food. Bread is the staple, flat loaves made from emmer wheat or barley. You watch as dough, rough and dense, is shaped and slid into a clay oven built into the courtyard wall. The smell of baking bread mixes with the earthy scent of the river breeze. Alongside bread, beer is prepared, not strong but nourishing, made from partially baked loaves soaked in water and left to ferment. This beer will be drunk by all, young and old alike, for it is safer than river water, and it fills the stomach when food is scarce. You join others on the path toward the fields. The Nile, broad and calm, flows endlessly beside you. Its waters are life itself. Each year when it floods, it leaves behind dark silt, rich and fertile. Without it, nothing could grow. With it, wheat and barley sprout in abundance, flax for linen stretches tall, and vegetables, onions, leeks, cucumbers, thrive in the soil. The work is steady, deliberate. Men guide wooden plows pulled by oxen. Others carry water from small canals, pouring it into furrows with scoops of clay. Tools are simple, flint blades, wooden hoes, yet in practiced hands they are efficient. The sun rises higher and the air warms. The fields shimmer beneath the heat. Farmers sing softly to pass the hours, their voices weaving with the buzzing of insects and the rustle of reeds. Back in the village, artisans and craftsmen work. One shapes clay on a slow-turning wheel, forming jars that will carry oil, beer or grain. Another carves wood, perhaps fashioning a simple stool or a more intricate chest inlaid with ivory. Weavers sit at looms, the soft rhythm of thread passing back and forth filling the shaded workshops. Scribes, too, are at work. Seated cross-legged, they unroll papyrus and dip reed pens into dark ink. Their hands move carefully, sketching out hieroglyphs, records of harvests, prayers to the gods, lists of supplies owed to the temple. The writing is beautiful, yet functional, a bridge between the everyday and the eternal. Children learn by watching. A boy follows his father to the fields, imitating his gestures with a toy plough made from sticks. A girl helps her mother with weaving, her small fingers practicing the motion of pulling thread tight. Play is simple, yet always shadowed by instruction. Wooden dolls, small balls of cloth, carved animals, these are their toys, each a reflection of the adult world. As midday comes, the heat grows heavy. The sun beats down from a clear sky, and people retreat indoors or into the shade. Meals are taken, bread, onions, sometimes fish from the Nile, sometimes dates or figs when fortune allows. Water is cooled in porous jars, the clay sweating slightly as it keeps the liquid fresh. Afternoon passes slowly, filled with more labor, more quiet conversation, and then at last the evening arrives. The village gathers around small fires. The smell of roasting fish and herbs drifts through the air. Stories are told of ancestors, of gods, of the great pharaoh who rules in distant Thebes or Memphis. Above, the stars shine with startling clarity, mirrored in the black surface of the Nile. You return to your mat, the air now cool again, the hum of crickets steady beyond the walls. Tomorrow will be much the same. A rhythm, unbroken, shaped by the river and the seasons, the eternal pattern of life in ancient Egypt. As the sun disappears completely, the village's day draws to a quiet close. The last embers in the hearth glow faintly. The sounds of the day have faded, replaced by the gentle night chorus of the river valley. The air, thick with the day's heat, now surrenders to a comfortable coolness that settles over the land. In the simple mud-brick homes, families find their rest. There are no grand bedrooms, only shared spaces where sleep comes easily after a day of honest work. The silence is profound, punctuated only by the soft breathing of slumbering people and the occasional call of a night bird. The darkness is nearly absolute, a deep, velvety black that is a world away from our modern nights. For those sleeping outdoors on a rooftop to escape the lingering warmth inside, the sky is a breathtaking spectacle. With no competing lights, the stars seem close enough to touch. Constellations wheel slowly overhead, their movements as predictable and reassuring as the rising of the sun. The moon casts a gentle, silvery light, outlining the silhouettes of palm trees and the distant dark shape of the desert cliffs. Sleep in this ancient world is not just a biological necessity, it is a sacred time. Dreams are seen as messages from the gods, glimpses into the future, or visits from ancestors in the afterlife. A vivid dream might be discussed with the village elder or a priest the next morning, its meaning carefully considered. The world of sleep is a bridge to the spiritual realm, a quiet space where the human and the divine can meet. You feel your own eyelids growing heavy, your thoughts slowing down, drifting like a boat on the calm, dark surface of the Nile. The day's labors are done, the village is at peace. The great river flows on, a silent witness to the endless cycle of waking and sleeping, of life and rest. As you settle deeper into your own comfort, allow the gentle rhythms of this ancient world to guide you towards sleep. Let go of the concerns of today and sink into the quiet stillness of a time long past. The land of the pharaohs is now a land of dreams, and it waits to welcome you into its tranquil embrace. How about we move into a similar but yet intriguing story? If you've enjoyed this quiet exploration, Please consider following for more stories from the past. Soft, calm, and evenly paced narration begins. Our journey takes us back in time to a land of golden sands and a majestic river, a place where history was carved into stone. We're going to explore the story of one of history's most renowned figures, a name that has echoed through millennia. Tonight, we gently drift into the world of Ramses II. From the quiet patterns of daily life in ancient Egypt, let us move gently now into the life of one man whose presence was felt across the entire land. A man remembered in stone, in legend, and in the whispers of time. Ramses II, Ramses the Great. Imagine the setting. It is the 13th century before the Common Era. The Nile flows as it always has, a life-giving artery through the desert. On its banks, Egypt is flourishing under the rule of a new dynasty. Great temples rise towards the heavens. Soldiers march in disciplined formation. Scribes meticulously record each detail of the king's reign. And at the very center of this vibrant world stands Ramses, both a man and to his people, a god on earth. He was born around the year 1303 BCE, the son of the pharaoh Seti I, and from his earliest years, he was shaped for kingship. Even as a child, he was given military titles, paraded before soldiers, and dressed in fine garments of gold thread and shimmering linen. But let's imagine him not just as a future king. Imagine him as a boy, growing up within the vast, cool halls of the palace. The walls around him are painted with intricate scenes of gods and pharaohs. The air is filled with the subtle, calming scents of incense, cedarwood, and lotus blossoms floating in carved stone basins. Tutors guide him through the mysteries of hieroglyphs, while priests lead him in sacred rituals. His life, from the very beginning, was steeped in the profound expectation of greatness. When his father died, Ramses ascended to the throne while still in his early 20s. The moment was ceremonial, heavy with the weight of ancient tradition. He was crowned in the great city of Thebes, anointed with sacred oils, and adorned with the twin crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing the unity of his kingdom. The priests spoke ancient words that bound him to the gods, Horus in life, Osiris in death, the living embodiment of divine order. For the people watching, the farmers, the craftsmen, the merchants, this young pharaoh was more than just a ruler. He was the balance between chaos and harmony, the one who would ensure that the Nile rose, that the gods were pleased, and that Egypt endured. Ramses ruled for 66 years. It's an almost unimaginable span of time in the ancient world, where many reigns lasted only a handful of seasons. His presence was constant, steady, a figure who grew old while his people grew up, lived and passed on beneath his long, stable reign. He was a builder. Perhaps more than any other pharaoh, he left his mark in stone across Egypt. Imagine yourself walking through the temple of Abu Simbel, its magnificent facade carved directly into a cliff of sandstone. 4 colossal statues of Ramses sit there in solemn silence, each more than 60 feet tall. Their faces are calm, timeless, gazing out across the desert landscape. Inside, the air is cool and still. The walls are decorated with detailed scenes of battles, rituals, and offerings to the gods. As torches flicker against the carvings, they throw dancing shadows across the eternal stone, bringing the ancient stories to life. Ramses built at Thebes, at Memphis, and at Pyramesses, his grand new capital in the Nile Delta. Everywhere you looked, statues of him rose, carved in granite, polished smooth, and inscribed with his many titles. To walk through Egypt during his time was to feel his presence at every turn. It was a constant, overwhelming reminder that the pharaoh was eternal. He was also a warrior, or at least he wished to be remembered as one. The Battle of Kadesh, fought against the powerful Hittite Empire, is one of the most famous battles in ancient history. In reality, it was not a clear victory, though Ramses proclaimed it as such upon his return. Scribes inscribed his version of triumph on temple walls, showing him alone in his chariot, bow drawn, single-handedly driving back countless enemies. Whether the truth matched the story hardly mattered. What mattered was the image, the enduring vision of Ramses as a divine conqueror, a hero chosen by the gods. Beyond the battlefield, Ramses was a diplomat. The treaty that followed the Battle of Kadesh, signed with the Hittites, is one of the earliest known peace agreements in history. It spoke of friendship, of alliance, of unity between the once rival powers. Imagine the scribes carefully pressing hieroglyphs into clay tablets and stone, recording words that were meant to outlast generations. For the people of Egypt, this peace meant stability and security. It meant a chance to return to the steady, comforting rhythm of planting and harvest without the constant fear of invasion. Within his court, life was elaborate, yet highly structured. Palace walls were painted in bright, vivid colors. Courtyards were filled with palm trees and pools of cool water where lotus flowers floated peacefully. During feasts, musicians would play harps and flutes, their gentle melodies filling the halls. Dancers moved with slow, deliberate grace, and servants carried platters laden with roasted goose, sweet figs, and honey cakes. Yet beneath all this luxury, there was always ceremony. Every act of the pharaoh's life, eating, praying, appearing before his people, carried a deep symbolic weight. To eat was to partake of divine bounty. To pray was to speak on behalf of Egypt itself. To stand before his subjects was to assure them that cosmic order remained unbroken. And through it all, Ramses lived not alone, but surrounded by family. He took many wives, but it is Queen Nefertari who is remembered as his great beloved. Her tomb in the Valley of the Queens is among the most beautiful ever discovered, its walls painted with breathtaking scenes of her journey into the afterlife. Her presence beside him was not only personal, but also political, a symbol of harmony and strength within the royal household. As the years and decades passed, Ramses grew older, but his official image never diminished. Even in old age, he was portrayed in art and sculpture as strong, youthful, eternal. The sculpted stone faces never wrinkled, never faded. And so, in the eyes of his people, he was unchanging, the unshakable anchor of their world. When at last he died, he was over 90 years old, an astonishing age for his time. Imagine the great mourning that swept across Egypt. Priests chanted solemn hymns in the temples, families whispered prayers in their homes, artisans paused in their labor. For many, he had been the only ruler they had ever known. His passing marked the end of an era, a quiet reminder that even the eternal must one day find their rest. Yet his presence endured. It endures today, in the statues, in the temples, in the inscriptions carved into stone that still stand against the winds of time. The ancient Greeks would later look upon his monuments and call him Ozymandias. Travelers centuries later would gaze upon his fallen statues, broken yet still immense, and feel the powerful echo of his ambition. And now, as you imagine yourself walking through those silent ruins, the sand whispering beneath your feet, the stars glimmering brightly above the Nile, you can almost hear the profound silence of his monuments. Still, eternal, Ramses the Great. Let his story guide you into a deep and peaceful rest. From the life of Ramses the Great, let us drift now into the greater mysteries of Egypt. Mystery, archaeology, and culture. Pyramids, tombs, and rituals. Imagine the desert, wide and endless. Golden dunes stretch as far as the eye can see, shimmering in the heat of the day, cooling to silver beneath the stars at night. On the horizon, shapes rise, geometric, perfect, vast. The pyramids of Giza, standing for more than 4,000 years, their presence is both simple and overwhelming. At first glance, they are mere shapes, triangles against the sky. But as you approach, the scale becomes clear. Each block of limestone is taller than a man, heavier than a team of oxen. Laid one upon the other, they form monuments so immense that even time itself seems to bow before them. How were they built? Even today, the question lingers, though much is understood. Tens of thousands of workers, not slaves, but laborers, organized with precision. Ramps of mud brick and wood, pulling blocks with ropes, rolling them on logs. Day after day, season after season, the work continued. Songs may have guided the rhythm of pulling, drums may have marked the pace. The sound of chisels striking stone echoed across the desert, the air thick with dust, the scent of sweat, the heat unrelenting. And yet, the result was not chaos, but order, a structure aligned with the stars, its sides facing north, south, east, and west. Inside, the silence deepens. Narrow passageways slope downward into the earth. The air is cool, still heavy with the sense of ages. Walls smooth and close, ceilings low, the torchlight flickering against pale stone. At the heart of the pyramid lies the burial chamber, once filled with treasures, now long since removed. But imagine it as it was, the sarcophagus of red granite, polished smooth, resting in the center. Around it, jars of food, vessels of wine, amulets of gold and faience, statues of servants meant to accompany the pharaoh into eternity. For the Egyptians, death was not an ending. It was a journey. To die was to step into another life, one that mirrored this world but was eternal. The tomb was not only a resting place, but a home for the spirit. Walls painted with scenes of daily life, ploughing fields, fishing in the Nile, sitting with family. Scenes meant to provide comfort and continuity, assuring the soul that the rhythm of existence would never break. Rituals surrounded this transition. The body was carefully prepared, wrapped in linen layer upon layer, prayers spoken, charms placed, a mask laid upon the face. The Book of the Dead, spells written on papyrus, guided the soul through the dangers of the underworld. There would be gates to pass, questions to answer, a weighing of the heart against the feather of truth. If the heart was pure, the soul entered the field of reeds, a paradise where crops grew tall, water flowed clear, and loved ones waited. If not, the heart was devoured, and existence ended. The rituals were precise, comforting in their repetition. Priests chanting in low voices, incense curling upward, the smell of resin, myrrh, and cedar filling the chamber. Outside, mourners beat drums slowly, their voices carrying across the desert air. The burial was not simply for the dead, but for the living, a reminder of continuity, of the eternal cycle of life and death. Centuries later, these tombs would draw explorers and later archaeologists. The sand shifted, covering entrances, sealing chambers. When rediscovered, they revealed wonders that seemed almost untouched by time. Paintings vivid with color, tools laid aside as if waiting for their owner, inscriptions that spoke in voices from millennia past. Consider the tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922. A chamber so small, compared to the Great Pyramids, yet filled with treasures beyond imagination. A golden mask, gleaming softly in torchlight. Beds carved in the shapes of animals, chariots, jewelry, food offerings, all carefully placed for a young king who died too soon. The discovery captured the world, but for the Egyptians themselves, it was never treasure. It was necessity. These were provisions for eternity, carefully chosen and respectfully placed. The mystery remains not only in how these monuments were built, but in why. What drove generations to devote their lives to such immense works? It was faith and duty, and the deep conviction that the pharaoh was not only a ruler, but a bridge between the human and the divine. To build for him was to build for Egypt itself, and for the eternal order that held the universe in place. Now imagine yourself walking through the Valley of the Kings. The sun is low, the cliffs glowing orange. You step down a carved pathway into the earth, through corridors lined with paintings of gods and guardians. Each step takes you deeper into silence, into shadow, into a place where the living once came, only to leave the dead. Here, in these hidden tombs, pharaohs rested, their names spoken in whispers, their images painted to last forever. And though centuries have passed, though time has worn away the brightness of paint and the smoothness of stone, the feeling remains. A calm, profound quiet. A reminder of how the ancient Egyptians saw the world, not as fleeting, but as part of an eternal rhythm. The Nile would rise, the fields would flourish, the sun would set and rise again. And in the same way, life would flow into death, and death into life again. As you close your eyes, let your mind drift back to the Nile. Feel the gentle rocking of a felucca on the water. The sun warms your skin, and a soft breeze carries the scent of lotus blossoms and damp earth. Along the riverbanks, life unfolds, as it has for thousands of years. Children laugh, fishermen cast their nets, and in the distance, the temples and tombs stand as silent witnesses to time. Let go of the day. Let your thoughts become as slow and steady as the river's current. Every breath you take is like a gentle wave, washing away tension, leaving you calm and peaceful. There is nothing to do, nowhere to be, but here in this moment of quiet rest. The stories of ancient Egypt are a lullaby, a soft murmur from a world long past, guiding you toward a deep and restorative sleep. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May your rest be peaceful and your dreams be filled with wonder. If you've enjoyed this time together, I invite you to follow and subscribe for more moments of calm. Good night. We have walked through the daily rhythms of villages, and we have wandered among the tombs of kings. Now, let us bring these two worlds side by side, the lives of the many and the lives of the few, the humble courtyards of farmers and the vast palaces of pharaohs. Imagine again the ordinary Egyptian, a farmer living along the life-giving Nile. His house is small and unassuming, its walls made of sun-dried mud brick, its roof flat and simple. Inside, there are few possessions, woven baskets for storage, clay jars for water and grain, mats made from reeds to sit or sleep upon. Furniture is minimal, perhaps a low wooden stool, a small table, or a chest for personal items. Meals are plain, but they are sustaining: fresh-baked bread, a simple beer, onions, lentils, and perhaps a small fish from the river. Clothing is practical, simple linen garments, light and breathable against the desert heat. Days are filled with the steady rhythm of work in the fields, planting or harvesting according to the season. Evenings are for rest, often spent upon the flat roof, gazing up at the countless stars that fill the clear desert sky. Life is steady, predictable, tied to the eternal rhythm of the river's rise and fall. Now, let us imagine, by stark contrast, the palace of the pharaoh. Here, walls are not plain mud brick, but are painted with vibrant colors, depicting gods, goddesses, and scenes of victory. Floors are not packed earth, but are inlaid with gleaming faience tiles that shine a brilliant blue, like the sky itself. Great columns rise high toward the ceiling, carved and painted with motifs of the lotus and papyrus, symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt. In the courtyards, pools of cool water reflect the sun, shaded by leafy date palms and cooled by the gentle spray of fountains. Servants move with quiet efficiency, carrying trays laden with food, roasted meats, sweet figs and dates, cakes sweetened with honey, and fine wine imported from distant lands. Musicians play soft melodies on harps and flutes, their gentle tunes floating through the grand halls. The garments here are of the finest linen, sheer and soft to the touch, sometimes embroidered with threads of pure gold. Jewelry gleams on every wrist and neck, bracelets, necklaces, and protective amulets carved from precious turquoise, deep blue lapis lazuli, and warm red carnelian. Life here is abundant, ceremonial, and touched with an almost unimaginable luxury. For the villager, The pharaoh is a distant, almost mythical presence, both feared and revered. He is the earthly manifestation of a god, the guarantor of Ma'at, the cosmic order. The villagers' connection to this divine ruler is felt through the payment of taxes, usually in the form of grain from the harvest or through labor and military service. At times, farmers are called away from their fields to help build the great projects of the state. Temples for the gods, canals for irrigation, or the monumental tombs for the kings. The work is heavy and difficult, but it is also seen as a part of their duty to the gods and to the continued prosperity of Egypt. To serve the pharaoh is to serve the balance of the world. For the elite, life is shaped by their proximity to the pharaoh. Priests, scribes, and high-ranking officials move within the palace walls and the great temple complexes. The priests attend to the gods, performing the daily rituals that were believed to keep the universe in order. They wash the divine statues, dress them in fine linen, offer them bread and beer, and light fragrant incense. Scribes, the keepers of knowledge, bend over their papyrus scrolls, meticulously recording harvests, writing royal decrees, and ensuring that the will of the king reaches every corner of the kingdom. Officials oversee vast labor projects, act as judges in disputes, and arrange trade with foreign powers. Each of these roles carries immense weight and responsibility. Each is a vital cog in the complex machinery of the state. Yet even among this privileged elite, there are layers and distinctions. A noble's house, while not a palace, may be a large and comfortable villa with multiple rooms, painted walls, and courtyards shaded by grapevines. Their meals are far richer than a farmer's, more meat, more wine, more exotic spices and fruits. Their children receive an education. Sons are taught to read and write, preparing them for careers as scribes or officials, while daughters might be trained in music and dance. A staff of servants attends to their daily needs, fetching water from the well, grinding flour for bread, and tending to the gardens. It is a world of relative abundance and comfort compared to the villager's life, yet it is still a world far removed from the divine grandeur of the pharaoh's court. And still, across all these vast differences, there are common threads that bind Egyptian society together. Bread is the staff of life, eaten by both rich and poor, though the quality of the flour may differ. Beer is the common drink, enjoyed in humble homes and at royal feasts alike. The Nile flows for all, for the farmer, the priest, and the king. Its waters nourish the fields that feed the entire nation. The rising sun warms both the villager sleeping on his roof and the pharaoh in his grand palace. The fundamental cycle of planting and harvest, of life and death, touches every single household, no matter how grand or how humble. Consider a great festival, perhaps the Opet festival in Thebes. In the bustling streets, ordinary people gather in celebration, farmers, craftsmen, children, and elders. They sing, they dance, they share simple food like bread and figs, and they drink beer. They laugh together, the heavy burdens of their daily labor lifted for a moment of communal joy. At the very same time, within the sacred walls of the Karnak temple, priests chant ancient hymns, clouds of incense curl upward toward the heavens, and precious offerings are laid before the golden statue of the god Amun-Ra. The pharaoh himself appears in a grand procession, wearing the double crown of a united Egypt, and the crowd bows low in reverence as he passes. For this brief, sacred moment, all are joined together, rich and poor, elite and ordinary, united in ritual, in celebration, and in a shared faith. And yet when the festival ends, each person returns to their place in the structured world. The farmer goes back to his fields, his hands rough from the plough, his meals simple. The noble returns to his villa, his clothes fine, his table abundant with delicacies. The pharaoh retreats to his palace, his image eternal, his life a living symbol of divine order and power. These contrasts remind us that ancient Egypt, like all great societies, was a complex tapestry of many layers, A fortunate few lived in extraordinary luxury. Many more lived in modest simplicity, and all were bound together by the same river, the same gods, and the same unceasing rhythm of the sun and the Nile. And so, as the stars emerge once more above the vast, silent desert, one can imagine both the villager lying on a simple reed mat, gazing upward at the familiar constellations that guide the seasons, and the pharaoh reclining within his painted halls, the sweet scent of lotus blossoms perfuming the cool night air. Two vastly different worlds, yet both under the same immense sky, both part of the same eternal flowing cycle of time. And now we gently leave ancient Egypt behind. The mud brick houses, the vast temples, the whispering sands of the desert, and the cool, dark waters of the Nile all begin to fade. We have walked through the patterns of daily life, followed the powerful reign of Ramses the Great, explored the deep mysteries of the pyramids and the tombs, and contrasted the separate worlds of farmers and kings. As you settle into your rest now, let these images drift slowly through your thoughts, like the steady, timeless, and unhurried current of the great river. The world of the past fades gently and peacefully into the quiet of the present moment. And you may close your eyes, finding comfort in the knowledge that the rhythm of history, much like the Nile itself, flows on forever. Good night.